To kind of saw a little bit and snip once right through. Hey, I'm Professor Polyp and welcome to the Coral channel. I'm a father of 3 and a marine biologist with over 16 years in the saltwater hobby, and 2.5 years ago I opened my own reef store. Hey everybody, I'm Professor Polyp and today we're going to talk about fragging leather corals. Leather corals are a soft coral, so they don't build a calcium-based skeleton like a lot of corals do. However, they do have these little calcium shards inside of them called spicules that will help build their structure and keep their shape even though they don't have a skeleton. Leather corals, another interesting thing about leather corals is that they will shed their skin. So once a month or so, all of those polyps will close up and the leather will look very smooth and shiny. That's it, just getting ready to shed that mucus layer. It'll be closed like that for a few days, and then that mucus layer will come off and the polyps will open back up again. So we're just going to go over some of the supplies that we're going to use when we're fragging the leathers today. First, we're using Coral's Coral Glue, cyanoacrylate super glue gel, and then we'll be using our frag plugs. Next, we're going to use some cutting supply. So I have a few different things to cut here. We've got bone cutters in case we need to cut any rock. I've got scissors that we can cut through the leathers with. I also have razor blades that we can cut through the leathers with. And then we have toothpicks. This is one of my special tricks for fragging leather corals that will really help make sure they attach right. First of all, I'm going to take the leather out of the water to get it ready to frag. And when I do that, I'm going to try to get the polyps to close as much as I can. So I'm just going to kind of gently agitate it. This can sometimes take a couple of minutes, and sometimes what I'll do after I've agitated it a little bit is I'll take it in and out of the water. That will kind of help shock it a little bit into knowing uh-oh, I better suck in and protect myself. I got the polyps about 80% of the way retracted, maybe 90%, and we're just going to start cutting this now. So the way that the toadstool leather is structured is it has this piece of flesh that comes up, and then it's got the crown or the bell that comes out. So this is pretty much all just soft coral. Some of it has the little spicules in it, but there's no skeleton. This does have a small piece of rock. This was actually the original frag plug that it was on, and it's just grown out from that. You just pick a spot wherever you want to cut it, and you just can cut it just kind of straight through. So I'd recommend doing one clean straight cut instead of a bunch of little jagged cuts. And honestly, the best way I found to do that is with scissors. So if you have a pair of scissors, it will work really well to just get that nice, clean, straight cut. Razor blades will work okay too, but they're a little bit messier and not as precise. So I'm going to go in with my scissors now. I'm just going to cut along this line right here. I'm just going to grab my scissors and snip once and readjust and snip again. And now that piece is fragged off of the main colony. Then I can grab that piece that I cut and I can cut it again. So you can really just cut pretty much anywhere. You want to give a little bit of tissue so that you can attach it to the frag plug, but you can really make these frags as big or as small as you want. Now we've got 5 frags that we cut with the scissors, and I'll cut a couple of frags with a razor blade just to show you guys that in case you don't have scissors that you can use on your corals at home. So I'm going to just cut another piece of the bell right here. I'm going to cut this one right here. So I'm going to hold this side and then I'm going to cut, just kind of put my razor vertically, and you're going to have to kind of saw a little bit to get it to cut that way. But again, you're just trying to make a nice clean cut. So now I'll take my razor blade again, just kind of like I did with the scissors. It's easiest to keep this on like a flat surface like your table when you do this, and then you can just cut whatever size you want. I'll even make some really small ones just to show you guys. I'll cut this piece in half so you can see, as long as it's got even a polyp. I don't think you could get a single polyp frag of a toadstool, but you can definitely try. And if there's a polyp, or really even if there's not a polyp, if there's any tissue, it can regrow into a leather. A couple of questions that I have gotten when I've fragged these leathers is it okay to cut through the polyps? And the answer is yes, it is okay. The polyps are so little and there's so many and there's so much tissue that you probably are going to cut through some of the polyps, and that's just fine. The leather will still heal and not be too damaged. Another question that I get is, can you just frag this entire thing up? If I wanted to just make this whole leather into a bunch of different frags, could I do it? And the answer is yes. There's a couple of things you can do, but I've found these to be super resilient, and you can really like cut them down to really any piece of tissue and it will regrow into a new leather coral. I've even had it where I wanted to move my leather and it's been like stuck on the rock, and I still am able to kind of cut around it or just like peel most of it off, and there's just like a very thin piece of tissue left that was holding the leather onto the rock, and even that piece of tissue can regrow, start growing polyps, and turn into its own leather coral. Now we're going to attach the leathers to the frag plugs. This can actually be a tricky thing to do. This is one of the hardest parts about fragging leather corals, is getting them to reattach. Because of that slime coat and mucus layer that I was talking about earlier, you can't actually glue the leather coral. It'll just slime and shrink out of the glue, and then it will fly around in your tank. So what I do is I just grab a toothpick, and since they're pretty big, I'll just snap them in half, and then I'll just skewer the leather with the toothpick. So find a piece of the frag that has kind of a decent amount of flesh, just because you'd like a little bit of wiggle room so that they don't fall out. And then I'm just going to take the toothpick and just go right through the tissue. So it's okay, this one went up through the top, through the bell, and that's okay. You can also just get it straight through. If you're good with the toothpick, you can get it straight through without damaging the top of the frag at all. So I just skewer it, and then I'll get my glue, open it up real quick. Oops. I'm going to put glue on a couple of frag plugs now. So I just get my glue, and then I'm gluing the toothpick. Instead of gluing the leather coral itself, I just glue the toothpick. And then I'm going to work on the next frag. So again, I'm just going to grab the toothpick and just skewer it right through the leather. And then I'm going to just put the toothpick in the glue that's on the frag plug. I found that this holds the leather in place really well, and it allows the leather to attach to the frag plug. In my experience, it will usually only take about 1 to 2 weeks for it to start attaching to the frag plug. I was worried at first when I started using these toothpicks that they were going to rot in the water, and I wondered how long they could stay in without having problems. I've had toothpicks that have been in the water for a year or more, and the leather just kind of starts enveloping the entire thing. And I don't know what they actually make these out of. I thought it was wood, but who knows, because they don't ever rot, and they do just fine. But once the leather attaches to the plug, if you want to take the toothpick out, you're welcome to, but it's not necessary. I got all the frags skewered and the toothpicks glued onto the plugs, so now I'm just going to grab them and put them in between my fingers so that I can hold a bunch of frags at once. The leathers, like most soft corals, do have toxins in them. That's how they protect themselves. And when you cut leathers, it can cause them to release some of those toxins because they're getting stressed out. I usually haven't had any issues after I've cut them with the toxins in the water and it harming other corals, or me really noticing any difference at all. But if you are nervous about the toxins and you want to make sure that it's not going to cause any problems in your tank, you can add some fresh carbon to your tank for a little while and make sure that anything that the leather might be releasing gets taken out with the carbon. Today I showed you how to frag the Japanese toadstool leather. The process of fragging is the same with any leather coral. So there's a lot of other kinds like finger leathers, devil's hands, and others. And you just do the same thing where you cut a piece of tissue, you skewer it with the toothpick, and then you glue the toothpick onto the frag plug and let them attach. Thank you everybody for watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments what video you'd like to see next.